All right, listen up, folks. Welcome to This Explainer. I'm going to be your host, but for today's session, I want you to consider me your veteran field training officer. We are talking about the absolute lifeblood of any criminal investigation: documentation. Now, you might think the job is done once the handcuffs click and that initial incident report is filed, right? Wrong. In the real world of law enforcement, that first report is literally just the foundation. Today, we're focusing on the absolutely crucial nature of follow-up documentation. We're talking supplemental, follow-up, and specialized reports. And let me be clear, these aren't just paperwork exercises to keep your sergeant happy. No way. These are permanent legal records that will follow you all the way to the witness stand.
Take a second and really think about this. How can an inconsistent follow-up report destroy your entire case? I mean, you could have the perfect physical arrest, clear probable cause, and a rock-solid suspect. But if your supplemental narrative months down the line contradicts your initial report, a defense attorney is going to tear your credibility to shreds. The physical evidence won't even matter if the paperwork documenting its chain of custody is flawed. It's like building a house on sand.
Okay, let's dive into this. Here's our roadmap for today. We've got 6 main stops: beyond the initial report, types of specialized reports, rules for follow-up documentation, good versus bad reports, the courtroom challenge, and we'll wrap it up with summary and capstone preparation. We're going to trace the chronological evolution of an investigation and show you exactly how to lock down your documentation.
So, moving right into Section 1, beyond the initial report and the evolution of an investigation. Because as we know, police work rarely ends the second your shift is over. And this brilliantly illustrates exactly how a case breathes and grows over time. Think of it like a timeline. Point 1 is your initial incident report, capturing the raw facts known right at the time of the call. But then, look at Point 2. Days later, the trauma subsides a bit and the victim remembers crucial new details. Point 3. A detective is out canvassing the area and locates additional surveillance footage down the street. Then, Point 4. Patrol officers are sent back out to gather those new items, which triggers evidence recovery supplements. The takeaway here is that every single one of these points after the initial report requires a supplemental narrative to legally document the timeline updates in the investigation. So, put your investigator hat on for a moment. What new information actually changes an investigation? Finding a new witness, recovering a weapon that was previously unaccounted for, or even receiving an updated medical status on a victim. These things entirely shift the trajectory of a case, and your reports absolutely must reflect that shift accurately.
Let's move along to Section 2, types of specialized reports. Different situations demand some highly specific follow-up.
Let's break down exactly what prosecutors and detectives expect from you. Take domestic violence, for instance. Bruising often doesn't even show up until days later, so that requires a dedicated supplement just for the new photos. For gang-related incidents, intelligence updates connect back to broader interagency investigations. If you're dealing with mental health evaluations or juvenile intake procedures, those mandate highly specific supplemental documentation because of the distinct legal protocols involved. And finally, any use of force requires its own highly specific narrative detailing the exact mechanics and justification of the force you used, and that has to be completely separate from the underlying criminal charge.
All right, transitioning into Section 3, rules for follow-up documentation. Let's get into the actual nitty-gritty mechanics of writing these continuation reports. So the crucial point is this 4-step process. Step 1, always reference the original case number. Without it, your supplement is just floating out there in the void. Fun fact. Well, actually scratch that, it's not a fun fact at all. Thousands of cases are thrown out nationwide every single year simply because a follow-up report had a contradictory date or an unlinked case number. Don't be that statistic. Step 2, ensure chronological continuity. Your reader has to be able to follow the timeline seamlessly. Step 3, and this is critical, you update reports without changing the original facts. If you made a mistake initially, you write an amendment clarifying the error. You do not go back and try to rewrite history. And Step 4, maintain absolute objectivity. Just stick to the facts.
So think about this for a second. What details should be added without rewriting the original report? Well, if a witness completely changes their story, you document their new statement in a supplement. You don't rewrite your first report to pretend they never lied in the first place. You link the reports together properly so the prosecutor can clearly see the progression of that witness's memory. Moving into Section 4, good versus bad reports. We are going to look at some split-screen comparisons to see exactly what not to do out in the field. If you compare a contradictory report that's missing its timelines to one with precise chronological sequencing, the difference is night and day. Jumping from discovering evidence right to interviewing a suspect with zero chronological bridge, that destroys your credibility, because the reader has no idea when things actually happened. But stating, at 1400 hours, I arrived at the secondary scene.
At 14-15 hours, I located the surveillance camera. That strengthens your investigation exponentially.
Now, what's really interesting about this next point is the failure in legal articulation when things go wrong. Vague, opinion-based writing like, "the suspect seemed nervous and I found some stuff," is a complete failure. It completely fails to document evidence chain updates properly, but contrasts out with objective language that explicitly links the recovered evidence to specific witness statements and updates the property chain of custody professionally. That is exactly what prosecutors need to see.
Which brings us to Section 5, the courtroom challenge. This right here is the ultimate test of any investigation.
We have to ask again, how can inconsistent reports damage your credibility? Listen, when you are up on that stand, your badge is not going to protect you from poor writing. If your interagency communication is sloppy or your timeline is broken, the defense is going to exploit it.
Imagine sitting in the witness box. The jury is watching your every move, and a defense attorney looks right at you and hammers you with this question. Officer, your follow-up report contradicts your initial narrative. Which version is the truth? If you didn't link your reports properly, or if you altered original facts instead of writing a clear, separate supplemental narrative, you're going to freeze. You absolutely never want to be the officer caught in that trap.
So how do you actually survive cross-examination? It's pretty straightforward. You provide defensible documentation from day one. You maintain professional formatting across all of your continuation reports. You show clear evidence chain updates that leave absolutely zero gaps in custody. And ultimately, you ensure that prosecutor and detective expectations are met long before the trial even begins. If you follow these rules, your documentation literally becomes your shield.
Let's wrap things up with Section 6, Summary and Capstone Preparation. Everything we've discussed today contributes to the permanent record.
Let's recap real quick. Supplemental reports are absolutely critical for evolving cases. They're the connective tissue of your whole investigation. Remember that every single report, correction, or juvenile documentation file you touch becomes part of the permanent legal record. Proper linking of original case numbers and strict objectivity, those are non-negotiable standards in this profession. Take these lessons to heart as you get ready for your final report review and capstone assessment.
I'll leave you with this final, provocative thought as we close out this explainer. Are your supplemental reports defensible enough to survive the courtroom? Really think about the reports you've drafted so far. Would they hold up under fire? If the answer is no, now is the time to fix those habits. Keep your timelines tight, remain totally objective, and respect the process. Good luck on your assessments, and stay safe out there.